Welcome to Cycling Fashion Week, the only global podcast that looks at cycling purely from an aesthetic and extremely superficial point of view. The podcast is brought to you by Le Club, host to the world's most exciting cycling brands. LeClub.cc is your go-to destination for this season's premium cycling apparel. You can shop brands like MAAP, The Service Course, Alba Optics, Fingers Crossed Socks, and they have more brands and categories arriving soon. In fact, they're launching a whole new online experience this spring. They have worldwide shipping, not to mention the finest coffee in the business. Go to leclub.cc and demand more from your cycling experience. I am your host, Alex, and I am joined by my regular co-hosts, Warren and Tony. Guys, how's it going this week?
It's going well. I think you did a great job on the read as we're getting into it. We love the club, but I've noticed from their Instagram that they post all their posts à la Québécois in French and English. So I'm wondering if maybe from now on you should do a French read for our listeners. Maybe we got a few French listeners out there who want to hear what Alex, who is a native French speaker, that's his first language, sounds like doing an ad read in French.
Bienvenue au podcast de Cycling Fashion Week, le meilleur podcast cycliste au monde. So guys, I hope you had a nice little espresso from your Le Club coffee, because we have a monster episode today. We have very special guests on the program. In fact, we are welcoming Aliya Barnwell. She is the kit critic for Velo News, the very popular website. She's the kit expert. You can follow her on Instagram at Kit Addiction, where she'll give you her takes on various kits. In fact, she is the global cycling style authority. I always say that it's us, but maybe it's her. She's been in the game a little bit longer than we are. Anyway, we're very happy to have her on the podcast. And we're also very fortunate to welcome on the same interview Alex Ostroy. He's the founder and owner of the New York City-based cycling kit brand Ostroy, and he'll be telling us about the kind of the inside baseball of making kit. And we'll be asking him and Aliya all sorts of questions about kit that we've always wanted to know, but we're always too afraid to ask. So that's coming later on the podcast. You can also follow Ostroy at Ostroy NYC on Instagram and go to their website at ostroy.com. Okay, releases. The first element or item that we're going to talk about in the new cycling kit releases is the new Evade colors, the Evade collection from one of our favorite brands, MAAP, out of Australia. So they released that last week. It's called the Evade collection. It's always been known for its lightweight performance and bold graphics. So they've got a whole bunch of new colors there. They have a green, they have a beige, they have a light blue, they have sort of burnt orange, which appears to be quite trendy in the world of cycling right now. Many brands are coming out with burnt orange. Our friends over at Albion also have had a burnt orange in their recent releases. And they have a pink that looks, I would say, like the very famous millennial pink from a few years ago. But what's interesting in that collection as well is the textures. They have textured sleeves on the jerseys. They also released post-ride. They call it the post-ride recovery items. So t-shirts, hoodies, crews. Guys, what did you think about the Evade collection from MAAP?
I love it. I like the design, and I also like that I feel like MAAP is going back to what MAAP is and kind of how I was introduced to them, instead of what they sort of did in the last couple collections, which was kind of follow the Panormal line. My first, what I'll call a sort of boutique cycling company kit was MAAP. I know they're not really boutique anymore. They're big, but many years ago, I was in Australia and I was visiting some family and friends and riding there. And this was still kind of when, mostly in Canada, it was pro teams, your club kit, shop kit and stuff. And so I noticed everyone riding these like just kind of more outrageous, stylish kits. Never sort of saw it. So I went to this bike shop, I believe it's called St. Cloud in Fitzroy, maybe in Melbourne. and I got some MAAP stuff. And not only was it kind of the first foray into a little more stylish, MAAP had done the jersey I got was this contour jersey. It's black with these sort of topography lines. It's really nice. But one thing that I loved is they had a lot of little details, little sort of like polka dots and colors in the collar, all these sort of just like little sort of accents to the kit that kind of made it feel really unique, even stuff you didn't see all the time. And I feel like they've refined maybe the style from the sort of originals that could seem a little outdated. But if you kind of look at this, there's all these little accents, little bars on the back of the jersey. The sort of design looks like, saying MAAP, but it's kind of bigger. Like they've sort of taken their original, what I see was their original ethos. I think people should also go check out the team MAAP Right. They sponsored I think it was like a continental Australian team, really wild jersey. They've taken that and kind of refined it for what the style is right now. And so I just think they've done a great job. I'm glad they kind of went back onto their own sort of path, and people are kind of jumping away from the pas normal leading the pack. And I think they've done a really nice job. I'd wear pretty much all of this, and even the off bike stuff or the post ride stuff.
I agree. I like this a fair bit and thought the same thing when I saw it. It reminded me of what I originally liked about MAAP. I still have a number of MAAP kits from like 2014, 2015 that are kind of that original era where they had the like almost stylized M, but it was kind of like almost like a horizon across the jersey. And one of the jerseys with the kind of like the big M is almost to me like a more like modern take on that. Yeah, I like the colors. I overall just really like it. And the other thing I was going to say, and this relates back to what I criticized Envy for last episode about their soft goods, the t-shirts in this MAAP collection are $75. So
nice.
Now we're talking.
This isn't winners. If you're going to be buying a cotton t-shirt that says a cycling brand on it, you want to be playing premium.
Got to keep it expensive or Cycling Fashion Week won't talk about it.
Exactly. Otherwise, every episode will be about Pearl Izumi.
All right. The next item we're going to talk about is a release from the, I believe, Australian brand. And we actually had a discussion about this before. Should I call it Attaquer or should I call it Attaquer because it's Australian? The only thing is they spell it like the verb to attack, attaquer, in French. And since French is a more pro language than English, I'm tempted to call it Attaquer, but since they're from Australia, maybe I'll just call it Attaquer. Anyway,
why don't we change it and just like all of us, even in mine and Warren's shitty French, we'll call it Attaquer. And just like eventually, even if they as a company, as Aussies want to make it Attaquer, we're so important in the cycling fashion game that we'll just eventually get everyone, even their staff members, calling it Attaquer.
So Attaquer, so they released a collaboration with an artist and animator called Will Carsola. He is known for the hit called Mr. Pickles, which is on Adult Swim. And he shares his dark humor and colorful style with a crazy cast of characters to coax out that alter ego. So they say that the collection is for creeps and weirdos, the Hellraisers and goblins and all of us. Now is your time. So they've released a bunch of jerseys, which they're very kind of cartoonish, but cartoonish in a somewhat, how could I say this, in a little bit of a scary sense. Like there's monsters on there. There's characters that look like they're from Hieronymus Bosch's vision of hell, if you will, but it also has a little Ed Hardy side to it. When you look at some of the typefaces and the fonts that are on there, I am somewhat reminded of Rock Racing, which is a personal favorite of mine. So Attaquer calls this the artist series, or since it's Attaquer, I guess I could call it the artiste series. Guys, what did you think about this release from Attaquer / Attaquer?
I like it. I feel like Attaquer has had a lot of these artist collabs over the years, and I haven't liked every single one of them, but they're usually at least different and interesting. And this, for me, at least falls into the interesting category, especially the Rainbow Goblins one in particular, which kind of looks like what I feel like I would see if I was having like a bad acid trip or something,
or a good acid trip,
or a good one. And it's kind of jersey I probably wouldn't wear very often. I think I would wear it for like on special occasions of some kind.
I mean, I think that's the clear statement that needs to be made with these artist series or anything like this that sort of jumps out is, and we've made it before. It's not a new statement for us, but you've got to build out your sort of more simple wardrobe before you step into this. But I do love the idea of like a bold, wild kit to kind of, add to your repertoire, add to your wardrobe, and sort of certain times you're feeling right, feeling fast, certain rides you take it out. Yeah, I think they've done a cool job with this. I've actually only ever seen one of the Attaquer Artiste series in the wild. I think someone had the Keith Haring kit I saw once riding, and it looked really cool. Like he had the matching bibs and everything. And I think you've got to be it's a bold statement, it's a bold personality. You've got to be confident on your bike. You got to be a pretty good cyclist. But I like that idea that as much as, muted tones and clean lines are sort of timeless, every once in a while you step up with something that just kicks you in the teeth.
But if there's any new cyclists listening to Cycling Fashion Week, and I certainly hope there are, maybe don't start your wardrobe, your cycling kit collection with that. Maybe start with universal colors or something a little bit more basic, and then eventually you build up to this. Now, my take on this is I always say that I want to be bolder in terms of my cycling kit, but anytime I see something that's actually bold, I always say, well, I can appreciate this from afar, but I don't need to own it. And this to me is in that category. I don't know if I'm just too conservative with my cycling kit choice. Maybe I just need to take the plunge and just do it and get a crazy kit like that at some point. But it feels a little scary to me. Couple things as well. I actually like that. There's one of the t-shirts that they released. They call it the Brainiac t-shirt. It's basically a white t-shirt with a sort of, skull of a monster on it or some sort of goblin type character. That character makes me look a little bit like, some of the troll memes that you see on Twitter. Like, so you can tell that this is clearly influenced by internet culture, and meme culture, which I kind of appreciated. And the other thing is they have a white jersey that only says Attaquer on the front, but this is where I was going with the Rock Racing earlier. When you look at the typeface and the font of that Attaquer logo, it reminds me a little bit of the Rock Racing kit. So you know what? Maybe my bold kit this year will be the Rock Racing kit. It's not going to be anything else. It's just going to be the Rock Racing kit, and I'll start there.
I mean, you don't ride in the community. I feel like this is kind of one of those, like, this type of kit, maybe in the Rock Racing, is kind of like you're at peak fitness. You both like look good in the kit, and you can be on the front for like a good portion. You go to, like, I'm sure every city's got their fast ride. One of them here in Toronto is Hammerfest that I used to sort of be able to hold on to. I don't know about anymore, but for a while. And it's like, then you can like kind of pull up. It's like a statement, but you ride on your own. You hate the community. You don't do group rides. It sort of doesn't feel as like you don't need to peacock the way someone coming to like a fast group ride who like just feels really confident in their ability does. And that's kind of what this is like perfect for, like kind of like showing up and someone's like, who's that guy? And then you like, you crush it on the front for like 40K.
Now, is the community going to like you though, if you show up in that kit? Because I feel like a lot of the community today in 2022 just rolls to the group ride wearing Panorama Studios solid colors. The community wants to blend in. The community wants to not be noticed, middle of the pack type stuff. Don't you feel that there's a bit of a risk there that if you wear that kit, the community is going to ostracize you?
You're sort of right, but I think the thing is like the community is also, and this comes to a question we keep dancing around how important is fast to being stylish, but the community also like appreciates a fast person. So like, I'm not saying I'm someone who's fast enough to wear this kit, but like if you're like just a beast on the bike and you come on there, like, yeah, the community in one way will hate you, but they'll also respect you.
I think if you show up at the community ride, the group ride in that kit, and you cause a crash, I think you are gone from the community forever.
Yeah, if you're the guy, that guy in the Attaquer Artist Series kit caused the crash because he like brake checked because he got to the front of the ride and was afraid,
then it's Panorama Studios forever at that point, and nobody's gonna ever wear Attaquer.
You might as well just wear a t-shirt on your trainer, because if someone sees you on the road, you'll be mocked mercilessly.
Anyway, so mixed takes on the Attaquer Artist Series kit. All right, very quickly, another release we're going to talk about. So Campagnolo a favorite brand of Tony when it comes to not being actually about the Gruppo, Campagnolo released a cycling backpack. So this is full on bike packing, gravelly kind of vibe, but from Campagnolo, a brand that is historically much more associated with European road riding. So they've grown their range of accessories with the addition of a waterproof road bike pack. I don't think it's Gore-Tex, but they say it's waterproof. The backpack seeks to offer the perfect balance between protection against the elements, advanced functionality, style, and design. It's a navy backpack. It's got a bunch of ropes or strings on the back. It's got a bit of a messenger vibe when you look at the shape of the backpack. And yeah, there's not much to it, but it's got a Campagnolo logo on it. Tony, do you love it?
I love it. I need it. I need someone to send it to me because I don't want to pay for it. But actually, where I work, my boss is also a cyclist, and we've discussed in the spring doing some lunchtime laps as part of my contract. And that means I'd have to, ride my road bike and bring my kit to the office. This would be perfect for me. It would be perfect to sort of accessorize when I'm, if I'm in sort of street clothes, but riding the road bike, packing my stuff in there, or vice versa. It'd be perfect for me. It looks great. People know I'm a serious road cyclist, but that at that current moment, I've got to commute somewhere. The look is great, and the Campagnolo logo is quite prominent. Not over the top, but you definitely see it well on the back there. So, if anybody works at Campagnolo, has a Campagnolo connection, hit me up. Give it to me. I'll take a lot of pictures of me on it, wearing it. It's amazing.
I totally disagree. I think it looks cheap. Doesn't look well made from the photos. The size is weird. I think it'd make your back sweat so much if you did like anything above like 10K an hour. The Campagnolo logo is not big enough, in my opinion.
The food was terrible, but the portions are too small?
Yeah, exactly. And I just, you're going to spend all this money on a backpack. You really want to show that logo off. I think it looks bad and impractical. I know we don't really care about practicality normally, but
what's impractical about it? It's super practical.
The size, how high it is.
No, it's good. Think about all the stuff you can fit in there. It's got the roll top.
You can fit you could fit your Campagnolo mugs, your Campagnolo water bottle, your Campagnolo t-shirts,
sweatshirts, my hats, everything about Campagnolo that has nothing to do with the group set or wheels is cool. Campagnolo, the group set. Okay, I'm not even gonna joke. That's not cool. It's fucking amazing, but it's cooler to have accessories. It's the guy once I saw on Attaquer Boulevard who had a red Honda but had like a bunch of Ferrari stickers on.
So back to the thing about buying the Porsche hat because you can't afford the Porsche. I'm a no on this Campagnolo backpack, not because it's Campagnolo, not because it's ugly. I'm just a no on backpacks in general. Too bike packy, too gravelly, hard no. I'm out on this one. Okay, last release before we go to the interview with Aliya Barnwell and Alex Ostroy. Paranormal Studios. Is there an episode when we don't talk about Paranormal Studios and what they're releasing? I don't think so. It's our duty. We have to keep talking about it. The people demand it. They released a collection in collaboration with iconic Italian brand Pirelli, the tire makers out of Italy. Essentially, they released a tire set. They're called the Pirelli P0 Race TLR tires. It's one color. It's all black. It does not have tan sidewall, which very controversial on Pirelli and Panorama's part. The tires are 75 euros each. And they also, oddly enough, released a sort of baseball cap that has a giant Pirelli logo on the front. Very reminiscent of potentially a Formula One fan type baseball cap. And they also have a t-shirt that goes with it, black t-shirt with a white Pirelli logo. There's a water bottle. There's socks. Guys, what did you think about that?
I don't know. They're tires.
I mean, again, I'm an F1 fan, and everyone who watched this year knows, just a lot of people, it's become a big sport, knows how well the Pirelli tires did with blowout. Max Verstappen is never going to ride a bike if he thinks, or he's never going to buy Panorama if he thinks they're connected to Pirelli, because he lost out on an easy win because of their tires. So Yeah, it's a weird collaboration, and I exclusively ride tan sidewall, so it sort of doesn't matter to me.
So interesting that Panorama is doing a reverse Envy here. So last episode, we talked about how Envy got into the cycling kit game. Envy, very well-respected brand for wheels, for stems, for all kinds of various parts in the cycling industry. Very good at what they do, very well-respected, very expensive products, kind of a flex to own Envy wheels. And then they come up with this kind of cheap kit that doesn't look good, that doesn't look like it's well made. And then Panorama Studios, very respected kit brand, very expensive. People want to be seen wearing it in the community on Instagram. And then they come out with a pair of tires in collaboration with Pirelli, and the tires don't even have tan sidewall. Why is there a need for Panorama tires here? Aren't we just happy with Panorama kit? I don't really get it. And I don't find the clothing to be that nice personally. Why would you want to wear a Panorama t-shirt that has a giant Pirelli logo on it? I'm relatively unclear on this. I get that it's kind of a vintage, iconic Italian brand that has a history there, but I just don't really see, why there was a need for that, and who basically asked for that.
They just slapped their name on it. Like there's no design touch or anything done to the tire to make it like somewhat unique. It's just their logo. So I don't know.
You're looking at it from the wrong angle. This isn't Panorama coming to Pirelli. This is Pirelli coming to Panorama, right? Like, think of, Alex, again, you don't do the community, but think of your friends in the community. Do you know a single person riding Pirelli tires? No, I haven't seen a Pirelli tire on a road bike. I don't even know when. I've never owned them. I can't think of a single person I know owns them. I can't think of shops who at least display them prominently. Like, they're obviously around. This was Pirelli realizing they are failing in market share. Nobody gives a shit about them as a bike tire, and they know that Panorama is at the although possibly cargoing the bib, but like we never even thought of talking about Pirelli. We haven't talked much about tires in general, but like Pirelli probably wouldn't have come up if we had a tire segment. But now we've just done 10 minutes on Pirelli, essentially. So this is Pirelli coming to Panorama and saying we need a makeover. We need some zhuzh from the cool kids. This is she's all that.
I don't know. I think I'm a no on this release from Panorama. Yeah. And for the record, I like Panorama. Kind of basic, kind of all over the place, but I like it. It's well made. It's good design overall.
I just can't believe they didn't do tan sidewall. Like I'm pretty sure if you look at every photo on Panorama's Instagram, the riders have tan sidewalls.
Or is Panorama kind of sending us a message that black is the new tan sidewall?
I don't agree.
No, they're wrong.
Okay, for our next segment, we have this week a very special interview with two distinguished guests. We have on the program today Aliya Barnwell and Alex Ostroy. Aliya is the kit critic for Velo News, and Alex is the founder of the kit brand Ostroy, which is from New York City. Both are from New York City. I believe they're currently somewhere warm riding. I'm not going to say where they are. And one thing is, we often say on this podcast that we are the global style authority when it comes to cycling kit. And I think that's probably an accurate depiction of the podcast. But to be perfectly honest, Aliya is probably the global style authority and has been the global style authority for longer than us. You can find Aliya on Instagram at Kit Addiction, and she writes a column on cycling style in Velo News. So we're very happy to have Aliya and Alex as the owner and founder of a kit brand on the program today. So Aliya and Alex, thank you very much for coming on Cycling Fashion Week.
Thank you for having us. Lay it on thicker, guys. I love it. But I think I would love to claim the title of the greatest kit critic or whatever, the style authority. But I think being critical means that you kind of can't just base it on style. But that's why I want to come here, because I'm learning so much from you guys. You guys convinced me to chop some stereotype off.
So you are both New Yorkers. I am from a smaller city. I'm from Montreal, as you know, and I've always been curious. I've been going to New York a lot. Just one thing we do in Montreal, we tend to go to New York just for a weekend in the spring. And I've always wondered what's New York like for riding overall. It seems like maybe a city where there's a lot of gridlock, a lot of traffic, a lot of cars. What's New York like for riding?
It's actually, I moved there after college, so I'm not born native like Aliya, but I've grown to love it. It's not, I wouldn't say it's world-class cycling. It doesn't have the Alps, but it does have some pretty great attractions. First one being the parks, which are nearby, to most accessible to most New Yorkers. You can easily ride to them and race in them. So you can get a game of pickup cycling pretty much any time of the day, which is different than anywhere else I've ever been. You can go and find some people that are riding at about the speed that you want to go at. And if you're a regular, you can make friends, just like a pickup game of basketball, and go and get a good ride in. So that's unique. And then we have a nice route to the George Washington Bridge, which does lead to some better riding. It's about, if you're in Brooklyn, it takes
it's 15 miles.
Yeah.
I don't know how many kilometers that is, but it's 15 to 17 miles from Brooklyn up and over the bridge.
Also, in the season, you can actually ride your bike to races 5 days a week. You don't have to get in the car. They're reasonably priced.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the pros.
We also have the casino track. I mean, for those other disciplines that we won't discuss.
So my only experience of New York cycling is Central Park in Zwift. What would you say the level of cycling style in New York City? I mean, New York's obviously one of the fashion capitals of the world. What's the state of New York cycling style that you see on the roads?
I think it's pretty high. It's obviously a place where there's plenty of money to be spent, and style is as a premium. So you definitely see a lot of honor mall. Ostory has a foothold here. We are pretty loyal to our brand, so Ostory has been supportive of the community. So he has a team, So things like that, we tend to a little clannish. We wear the people we know, because you probably actually know somebody who has a brand. So you definitely see some folks that look really, really great. And then you see, I mean, I hate to be that snob, and I'm just going to go ahead and do it. You kind of are judging a little bit based on what people are wearing, whether you hop on that wheel. And you can, I happen to be wearing a black kit right now, and somebody thought I was in Good Guys just because I happen to be wearing a black kit. And they're not going to move. Good Guys is a team, a local New York team that just wears black all the time. So yeah, you're judged by your kit, as you would be anywhere else, I think.
So you say there's a lot of money in New York, and that leads to sometimes the purchasing of good kit. Are there a lot of dentists in New York as well?
Yes. So many Cervelos just running for.
Are the dentists also, are they on the Assos train? Is it the Cervelo Assos collaboration for most of the dentists?
I think we know our friend who at Strictly Bicycles, which is probably the foremost shop for very expensive bikes, and he does a great job courting and selling to people, to wealthier New Yorkers, and it's actually a part. Assos, in the one in the city, owns part of the store, so they know that, and they have a big presence there.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had a couple questions, and we've been staunch about we're pro mixing and matching brands. We think that it actually really shows that you have sort of style beyond just going through a lookbook and choosing. And so I know, obviously, Alex, you own a company, and you're going to be loyal to that. But what do you guys think about mixing and matching brands in New York, which is really in its fashion is really a peacocking type of fashion town, like outside of cycling? Is that something you see with the cyclists around? Like they're really trying to do something different and new by grabbing a piece of MAAP, a piece of Ostroy, a piece of Campagnolo, and kind of fit it all together, or people just kind of wear the one brand uniform?
I agree with you. I think it involves a higher degree of difficulty for style, because you can fail terribly at it if you do it improperly. And that's why it would be like the opposite of getting, a Assos or a Rafa black kit, because that's more about not failing than it is about succeeding style wise to me. But if it's done right and it's difficult, I even think you can mix different pro teams bibs and jerseys.
Whoa.
Oh,
This might be the hottest take that's ever been
Right.
dropped on this podcast. And I'm going to say that this is no small feat because we just keep dishing out hot takes on this podcast, but this is a whole new level, mixing different pro teams. So I'm not even sure if I'm in favor of wearing pro team jersey to begin with, unless you ride for that team. But mixing pro teams is a whole new level of aggressiveness.
That's just Alex. I do not speak for. I do not agree with that. The old school people who have put in a lot of work and leg time on the bike, they can kind of get away with this kind of stuff. I think that it does speak to a little bit of tryhardism when you see the guy that's wearing the matchy brand new Rocket kit. Like you're not taking risks.
I'm naming the extreme poles here. I'm saying it's not impossible. Maybe it is, for you guys, but we know people who can pull this off.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's not impossible, but it's also very hard. Even if you do it well, I think it would be hard to do it and not look like you went to Goodwill and picked up some cycling kit, but kind of in a cool, inventive way. Like there's an element of hipsterness about mixing vintage pro kit that I'm not sure I would want to step into. But I agree that if you do it well, it can be very interesting overall.
Based on his references, there's like one guy that I know that's it. If he knows, he can claim there's other people. There's one dude. That's it. That can pull that off with a mixing of teams. That is, I do not co-sign that. Sorry, no. We can mix other brands. I feel like, again, it is a challenge to mix brands, and it's not always a win. But that just shows there's a little bit of trying. You're making an attempt to do something interesting. You got to break the rules sometimes, otherwise you never move forward in fashion.
Since we have Alex, who owns Ostroy, by the way, go follow Ostroy on Instagram at OstroyNYC, and Aliya, who is really the global style authority, the kit critic for Velo News. We thought that what we would do for this interview is we would poll our listeners and essentially ask them to ask the questions that they've always wanted to ask about kit, but that they were somehow too afraid to ask. Since we have two authorities on the podcast today, we thought that they were really the people to go to ask this sort of everything you've always wanted to know about kit, but were afraid to ask. And we got a bunch of questions from our listeners that we will run by you today to hear your, sometimes they're takes, but sometimes they're just factual pieces of knowledge about kit that people didn't necessarily have and that they felt they wanted to ask you.
Some of them could also be totally made up too, if that's okay.
Absolutely. But we actually got enough real ones that we won't need to.
I mean, the answers, not the questions.
Oh, the answers.
The answers. Okay, well, that's you.
Well, we won't know, so
yeah, we're exactly.
Say it with confidence.
Okay, so I'll start with the first question we got, which is more of a factual question that actually comes up quite a bit when people talk about kit. And the question we got was from a listener asking if it's true that most brands, sort of most high-end brands, are really all made in the same 5 or 6 factories in northern Italy. Is there any truth to that? Or is the production of cycling kit a little bit more diversified than those 5 or 6 factories?
Well, right next to the giant bike factory, actually, there's a big kit factory that makes all the brands, like Giant makes all the different bike brands. That's not true, of course, but I would say there are about 10 factories that make roughly 80% of the kits outside of China. Italy is getting less and less of them because it's harder and harder to find sewers in Italy. And now even in Eastern Europe, it's difficult to find sewers. So even very few of the Italian brands are even made in Italy. I know for us, we have 2 main factories. One big factory that I would say I would estimate is the 5th biggest factory in the world. And we're one of about 20 brands that produce there. And that offers us several advantages that you'd imagine, the expertise, and different people are trying to solve the same kinds of problems. They've solved them many times. They have many individual departments where we can get very specific advice. And then for us, we have one very small family-owned factory in Tuscany that we actually do most of our work in, they pay much more individual attention to us. We go there every year for weeks, and we spend time with them developing products. I mean, they won't even let us eat breakfast alone. You know, they're very hospitable. We spend all day with them, and we can prototype a new, say, bib every day from scratch, ride it, and tear it down, make another one tomorrow. We couldn't do that in a big factory. It's just not flexible enough, especially for a smaller brand like us. And of course, most of the bigger factories, the food is nowhere near as good as Tuscany. So,
and so you said it's getting harder to find sewers in Italy, and that it's as a result the factories are kind of gradually migrating out of Italy. Like, where is that expertise and that know-how going geographically in the world? Because obviously China probably makes a fair bit of kit. Northern Italy was making the high-end kit. Where is it happening now mostly?
Less and less, like I said, less and less is actually made in Italy. If you can set up a good factory all over the world, second and third world countries, there are good factories. And it's great to provide jobs for a lot of these people in places outside of Italy.
Okay, another question we got from one of our listeners. This one is, I don't know. I'll let you answer that one. Why does the cycling industry hate tall, skinny riders? So that person's saying a sub 19 BMI and 6'5", nothing fits. So I'm not sure if that's a flex or a question, but I'll ask you the question.
Sorry to jump in because obviously I'm not the pro to answers, but doesn't the whole world hate that in a sense, because it's just such an atypical body type that it would be,
it's very specific.
It's a very specific. You don't meet many people with a sub 19 BMI that's 6'5".
So where does Chris Froome buy kit?
But I don't think he's that tall.
I don't think
he's up there.
He's like 6'2" and a half.
Yeah, he's like 6'2" or 6'3". I'm definitely falling into that camp of longer limb proportionately. So I get this person's problem, but they don't hate us. It's just, it's a business, and you have to kind of hit that medium, right? You want to hit the most people. You want to find the kit that's going to fit the most people. And unfortunately, as the trend towards shorts being a little bit shorter, or like that mid-length short kind of takes over, you're going to see a little bit more problems for people who are tall and skinny like me. It's going to look a little weird. You're just going to have to find that. That's kind of the thing about style and what makes this kind of interesting, right? You have to find a brand that not only visually is appealing or like has stylistic elements that are appealing, but actually fits you well.
Oh, yeah. You say you have long limbs. So one of the trends that we've been seeing in the kit industry over the last few years is jersey sleeves to the elbow. So the kind of almost 3/4 length jersey sleeves for short sleeve jerseys. As a long-limbed person, can you actually achieve that, or do the sleeves always end up sort of mid-bicep territory?
I mean, I'm literally looking at the sleeve right now. I feel like it's a little bit shorter than it was normally. But I'm wearing an extra small of this jersey, and it's always going to be a little shorter than it would be on most people who wear on most women who wear an extra small. That said, that's why I prefer a longer sleeve. It's not just that; it's the function behind it, right? Like a longer sleeve has some functional benefits and flattering. It generally looks more flattering rather than cutting in the middle of the bicep. And you can tuck the arm warmers in, so you get that horrible arm warmer gap. If you are one of those people who wears arm warmers, I cannot stand that gap. That is just visually unattractive in every way.
Are there people who don't wear arm warmers?
I mean, I prefer a long sleeve. I have a whole piece about this later in the year. I'm like, I really prefer a long sleeve jersey. If you can make a long sleeve jersey work, then it's like the correct weight, so you're not sweaty. Then yeah, long sleeve. We know we don't like the lump, that lump in between where the arm warmer ends. Oh my god! And no, a lot of places don't get that right. They still haven't quite figured out the topping of that gripper for the arm warmer needs to be flat.
I agree. There's a lot of issue there, but for me, I just find, I don't know, and I assume New York's weather would be very similar to Toronto's in the sense that if you're kind of going for a spring fall morning ride and you're leaving at 7 and it's a 150K or 60 something miles, I don't know, you've got to come off, right? Like that's the thing. The arm warmer, I completely agree. I much prefer the style, even the comfort of a long sleeve, but I just find that with the weather in sort of Eastern Canada, United States, 7 a.m. is 2 degrees and 10 a.m. is 14 degrees. Again, I don't know if that is in Fahrenheit.
There is a significant change in temperature, and I think that's the trick to having like a comfortable jersey, and that's where vests and base layers come into play. I personally And as I realized that this is not for everyone, I will open a jersey. I would rather have an open long sleeve jersey with a base layer under it, or bibs, or a bra that is like kind of like a chest plate, basically, than have an arm warmer that is with a gap. I can't, you know what I mean? I just never is quite right.
Unzipped jersey when you're climbing is actually super pro. That's a very pro look. I'm in favor of that. By the way, subtle flex by Tony here, talking about his casual midweek 150 kilometer ride. Just the dude is he's just having coffee and then heading out for a 150 kilometer ride on a Wednesday. He wants to know what to wear. So nice flex by Tony there.
Well, I'll what's the opposite of a flex? A self burn, where I don't know if people want to see me with my shirt unzipped.
That's what base layers are for. It adds another layer of color and variety, and it's kind of something you reveal or not reveal.
I do love a base layer. I think that that'll have to be a segment coming up in the future, because I love a base layer.
Okay, next question. This one is more of a take, and our podcast actually has some history with that question. So someone asked if people wearing their socks on top of their tights or their leg warmers, 1980s roller disco style, is this acceptable? So we have a guest host on this podcast who is here occasionally. His name is Italian Alex. So it's another Alex, except this one's Italian. He believes that wearing the socks under the tights or the leg warmers is outdated boomer style, and that the younger generation, Gen Z, they all wear their socks above their tights. So I'm not a boomer, but I'm also not Gen Z. I'm a millennial. Anyway, I have my take on this. I won't say what it is. What do you guys think about that?
I know that this is directed at me, so I'm going to field this one. Obviously, you're coming right from my neck. That's fine. Just honestly, this was a recent discovery. I've struggled kind of back and forth with this. I'm not I like leg warmers. They serve a function, but like we had two different conversations here. The question is, do you wear socks over a leg warmer, or is your socks over tights? Tights.
Let's say over tights. Over tights.
Okay, I see that written here. So if it's tights, I'm wearing a shoe cover. So this is a negated. This is negated. You're not going to see if it's a tight, then if it's cold enough for me to put on full tights, then I'm wearing shoes covers or a sock, an oversock. I love a good oversock. I'm trying to find more obnoxious oversocks so I can trigger more people. But I do not think my socks are going to be visible. Now, if it's a leg warmer, then it's underneath. Why? Because the leg warmer has to come up. That's the point of a leg warmer. Otherwise, why don't you just put on tights? So there's a functionality issue here. So if it's, but I cannot stand that gap between tight and or leg warmer and shoe. And I've come to understand that, like, it's kind of like the cycling style varies by area, and that's you can kind of tell where somebody comes from. Apparently, people don't like double zippers in Belgium. Who knew? These people, I don't know these people. I can't claim these people, but apparently that's a thing. Functionality, it makes perfect sense. Like I wouldn't want to get a jacket that didn't have a double zipper, but I digress. If we're getting into knee warm or knicker, I like any excuse to wear an oversock, so I will probably put on an oversock anyway, and just maybe have a little line of sock just to kind of like accent whatever my outfit is, but it could be more than like an inch of sock above the oversock. If we're into neoprene booties, that needs to be covered. It needs to be tight into neoprene, preferably. I've broken that rule a couple of times with an added but it's like over. Then it's really cold. It's like tights, oversock, neoprene booty over that.
So when we talk about neoprene booties, are we talking about spats here?
I would honestly, I love a spat. I don't have a pair of like $200 spats yet.
I am pro spats. I am the one pro spats person.
I don't like
on
the
this
design,
podcast.
but I understand the function of them. They need to up that design. Looks like I don't even know what it looks like. It looks like modern armor. It looks like rock racing. At that point, you need to get boots. Ew.
Yes.
Ew. No.
Okay, but rock racing is amazing. Like we can't conflate the two. Because rock racing is amazing. And
First of all, you guys need to do a podcast on rock racing.
On rock racing.
No one has really done the definitive history of the team, which is totally fascinating.
Oh, they're insane. I mean, I remember they were very popular when I started cycling about 15 years ago, and that was kind of when it came out. But we've already agreed that to our listeners that we put up a poll. We're gonna buy a rock racing kit because they actually sell the vintage, the like 2007 era rock racing kits on their website. And if I can get fit enough, I'm going to race our sort of local crit in a rock racing kit.
You guys should have Bobby Endo on the show.
The Endo Customs, do they make rock racing kits?
Bobby Endo was the designer. And I remember when as soon as they put out that Rock's Not Dead kit, my first thought was, somebody's going to end up with those machines. And I was like, I want them. And he was the guy doing them. So that's how he started, he got them.
I did not know that.
Alex has a lot of good stories. He's going to be back on the show. I swear to God, he's got some good ones.
Okay, moving on to the next question. So this is another long-standing debate. So either, Alex or Aliya, you take this one. How risky are white bibs? Because they are a look, but I'm also terrified of them. So that question from one of our listeners, how risky are white bibs?
This is a good question. In theory, it's a great idea. And it can look great when you see it on the world champion. But it has to be correctly made. It has to have 2 layers of panels. Even then, all it takes is a little bit of moisture or a less than stellar washing, and the person behind you will quickly become your proctologist, basically. The biggest problem with bibs, I think people think that the wears, because, I've had this bib, I've ridden 10,000 miles in them, and in the industry, they call it grin. And what grin is, which is especially bad with white bibs, is if you take a fabric and you pull it apart and stretch it, right? For example, if it is printed and not dyed, so if one side's black and the inside is white, you can see the white coming through. What makes that kind of become exposed and unravel and the fabric become thinner is really the washing, not the riding, not the sun. People put it with enzyme detergent like Tide, and that will quickly destroy, a white bib, you would have to really very carefully hand wash every time.
That was going to be my next question, Alex. How do you recommend, kit care to make sure it lasts long? Because as you said, it's the washing that destroys a kit and not the wearing.
That's the first rule, I think. I turn them inside out, put them in a kit bag, and then the most important thing is, again, don't use a regular laundry detergent. Obviously, don't put them in hot water, hang them to dry. Vinegar actually works really well. That's what they used to do. It still works well. Any enzyme-free detergent will also work.
So just back on the white bibs, Alex, as a brand owner, is there enough of a market out there for white bibs for brands like yours to actually bother to make them? Or are white bibs really something that are reserved for, FDJ or world champions?
We would absolutely. We have yellow bibs right now, curry bibs, which we haven't had a problem with. We looked at it very closely. I would look at it, but it would have to be, I've definitely seen some fails, and we don't want to do that.
It's a flex.
It's a huge flex. Like, we're very pro them on this podcast.
Yeah.
We think that it should be mandatory for the world champion. Every year that the world champion comes out that doesn't have white, so Alaphilippe the last 2 years has done black, and it's been very upsetting. But there is exactly what you're saying. There is that understanding as a sort of recreational cyclist, to what extent can you do white bibs? And it is really hard, especially in climates like New York, Toronto, and Montreal. Sorry, everyone, for our North American bias, but in those places where you're going to have a lot of rain and dirty roads, even if it seemed like it was a clean day, because they're busy metropolises and stuff. So as a whole, I love white bibs. I agree. I don't think I could wear one. I don't think I could own one personally. I just
thing is, bibs are a big investment. So if you're going to wear them twice and they're ruined, I understand why people aren't really out there buying white bibs all the time.
You need a new pair every ride is the answer.
Okay, moving on to the next question. So this is more of a fit question. How do I know if my kit is too tight? If I'm between sizes, should I go up? Should I size up, or should I size down? How tight is too tight, really?
I think Alex wanted to field this one, but I'm going to start. I'm going to kick it off. Personally, I prefer a tight kit. Like I said, I like tight clothes. We are going for an aerodynamic benefit here. There's a fluid dynamics at play. It makes everyone look better, makes you feel better, compressive, blah, blah, blah. How do you know if it's too tight? If that zipper is rippling. If its zipper is rippling or it's cutting into your hip, like if it's a bib and it's cutting right into your hip when you fold your legs, that personally, I think that's a little bit too tight. Alex says if you can't zip it up, if you start to struggle at the chest, then I think he's going to say that that's too tight. That's a little bit too tight for me personally, because you can still zip something, zip it all the way up, and then you get those unsightly ripples across down the zipper, where it's just like the zipper's like holding on for dear life. It shouldn't look like that.
But are you like sucking it in? Like I have to suck in my gut on some of my jerseys to like get the zipper up. But then if I let it go, it's still, it still works. So is that too tight?
You're scratching your head like you're having doubts. So, I mean, like I said, if you can get it up, and again, the zipper is not rippling and forming like a river or like a undulating line going down your chest, then it's good.
Warren, that's what a tight base layer is for, to kind of jam everything in before you put on your kit. It's like, what's that brand called? Spanx, I think, or
shapewear. You get the tight. You get like Aliya said, you get an extra choice for your color, so you can add a little more panache to it. Then it gets tight. Then you get the bibs over top of that. And if your gut isn't sucked in from there, that jersey is way too tight. If you're still having to breathe in after having a tight base layer and your bibs over top, I think it's too tight.
Speaking from the industry side, not just my brand, I'm pretty sure everybody has the same issue. And that is, especially with newer cyclists, they don't understand oftentimes what a jersey is supposed to fit like. They think it's supposed to fit like a t-shirt. So we often get jerseys returned to us saying things like, is this meant for children? Are you kidding me? So sometimes we'll ask them to send us a picture, and most of the time it actually fits them quite well. And if you explain that to them, most of the time they'll listen to that and they'll start wearing them like that. But it takes a little bit of education for a newer cyclist.
Maybe they think it should fit like a t-shirt because they come from the gravel world.
Bazing. Or they're coming from, remember older jerseys have that long sag thing,
Right. I was gonna say, I have a lot of vintage jerseys. And if you look at jerseys from 40 years ago to 20 years ago, they got a lot smaller and lighter. I mean, it's just sort of, the trajectory is pretty clear. They're getting smaller and lighter and stretchier. So the same size jersey, I have jerseys for Greg LeMond in the same size, some of his original wool jerseys. They're huge. I mean, they were small at the time, but they're huge. So anyway, it's much bigger, thicker, and heavier. You'd look at that now and you would think, how do people even wear this? And then you look at the wool stuff, and of course, it's far less breathable, but it's also much bigger. So it's a different, you have to kind of wrap your head if you're a newer cyclist around the way that it's supposed to fit.
Okay, next question. This is actually a fascinating one. And I think, Alex, you're going to be able to enlighten our listeners on this one. So one of our listeners asked, can we talk about pricing? How do brands get away with it? In very few other sports do you see $300 plus shorts. We're talking US dollars here. So in Canadian dollar terms, that's maybe like $1,000. Alex, talk to us about pricing. Like, how do brands get away with it? How do brands justify it?
Actually, I don't think the margins on bibs, for example, for most brands, most of the time are any different than greater fashion or any other sport. Bibs are just very expensive to make. They're difficult to sew. They require special machines and special training. Even expert seamstresses can't sew bibs. They have to be trained how to do it. The chamois and trim pieces, like the straps and cuffs, are very expensive. And, it's not like the designers, like, we're not making them, or even the factories aren't making them. They're buying them from other suppliers. So there's a markup there. So I don't think at least for us, and maybe we're doing it wrong, but our margins really are not that good on bibs. And I would say that's probably true for most brands. Now, there are designer brands in cycling, just like there are $500 t-shirts, where maybe a lot of that money is going to marketing and supporting the brand, and, Calvin Klein's the horses and stable, and, they need a lot more money to keep all that going. That's a different thing. But I would say even up to $250, $300, that the margins are actually similar to other clothes and just other products you'll see in stores. It's really pretty much the same.
So it's just an expensive product to make. There's just a lot of labor, a lot of time that goes into it.
Yeah. I mean, I look at, I was look at a pair of basketball shorts from Nike for $60. I bet they make those in China for $3. That's a way better margin.
Next question. Someone asks, shorts or bibs for women? Bibs are impractical. Are shorts cool looking enough?
If you have the right shorts, you can make them look like they're bibs. Bibs are not impractical. That's why I'm obsessed with the drop tail bibs. That's kind of another reason I started doing this insane. Best of both worlds. You need the best of both worlds. That said, there are some drop tail bibs where they're too low in the back, so I'm kind of embarking on this massive quest to like search down, upgrade drop tail bibs. I have a massive Excel file that has like 30 bibs on them. That said, I get why women are concerned. It kind of sucks that they're like, a lot of people are like resistant. A lot of women in particular are resistant to bibs, even though they are structurally generally better. It's easier to get a good pair of bibs that stays in place than a good pair of shorts that stays in place.
That we find that to be true, and we try to convert women and beginning men to bibs for sure.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, chafing is going to like negate anything. So if you buy a pair of shorts and they move all over the place and you chafe, now you're not riding. So get the bibs, even if you have to struggle out of them in the bathroom. That said, there are so many more options now. I can name like, if I were to get out my phone right now, I could whip out 25 bibs easily that are drop tail from a range of companies. Assos is coming out with one even. Assos has them, Rappa has them. Like, there are options if you're looking for something that you can get out of.
Should we be looking forward to a Kit Critic Velo News article on drop tail bibs coming up? Is that maybe something?
Yeah.
Okay, another question we got. Speaking of bibs, how do you fold and store your bibs? Or actually, maybe you don't fold them. Maybe you hang them. What's the best way to do that?
I'm gonna field this one. So I'm gonna make fun of Alex for this. I mean, this is his job. For us, both of us, it's jobs. I will hang up my nice ones. I start out hanging them, and you get your pair, the matching kit. So you hang the kit together on a hanger. Now I'm just like, one hanger has like 40 bibs. I have like a ton of bibs on one hanger, and like the rejected or like ones that don't come in a pair are now in a bin. Alex basically gets his and like wears them once and wipes his nose with it and throws them in the garbage. Like he doesn't, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't even, it's not even a thing. But I guess if you wanted to actually store things nicely without stretching out the strap, there is a method where you like turn them inside out and you fold one through a leg. It's kind of hard to describe it without visualization. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, our camera is off. But yeah, there are ways to fold them if you must. But I think the point about like a cycling kit is if it's tight enough, it won't show wrinkles. So you just throw it in a bin and not stress yourself out and just collapse after you've done your whatever 150 mile or 150 kilometer weekday ride. You just come home, wash it, and dry it and throw it in the bin.
So I have a take on this. I think the idea of hanging your nice bibs, hopefully in a beautiful corner of your apartment, it's almost like an art exhibition. You've got your expensive bibs there. They're all parallel, all nicely spaced out, same amount of space between them. I think it's a very nice idea in theory, but I think for most people in practice, that doesn't work. I have an 18-month-old daughter. I've got toys all over the apartment. All the storage is taken by either my daughter, my wife, or just practical stuff in general. So the idea of hanging bibs, I don't think is possible. I have over the years migrated to the Marie Kondo Japanese rolling technique where I have a drawer full of bibs. And what I do is I fold them in two vertically, and then I roll them tightly packed like a little sausage, showing just the brand on top. Because if you've got like 7 pairs of white bibs, 7 pairs of white bibs, that's certainly not realistic, but 7 pairs of black bibs, and you don't know which ones are your MAAPs, which ones are your Ostroys, which ones are your Panorama Studios. So you just put the logo on top so you know what you're grabbing in the morning. Does that work, or am I going to ruin my bibs by doing that?
You heard my reaction, I'm sure, is the folding of the chamois made me a little nervous, but I think that works. I mean, whatever works for you. If you're not feeling results from the chamois being a weird.
You're just bragging.
Them flat was an interesting one. I did not come up with it, but I did see it, and I tried it, and I was like, it did work. Now, am I really going to do that all the time? No, because I don't care. I have a bin. I don't have a daughter. I have space. I have a walk-in closet. It goes in the bin. He's got a tub, literally, of bibs.
Many tubs
of bibs. So we are not the people who ask about storage. Although that is a legitimate question for most people, especially in New York, where space is at a premium. That's not bibs are expensive. I don't know how many people are going to be like, I have so many bibs. Where do I put them all? I think the Instagram image that we see of people in their beautiful closets with the organized, hanging, Aaron, I guess, has like the organized closet with all their nice kits hanging beautifully behind them. That is some Instagram.
You could ask my wife about my storage of bibs. I'm sure she would have a lot to say about that.
Okay. All right. So one thing we do with all of our guests on the podcast is we wrap up the interview with some rapid fire questions. So a very simple concept. We just give you kind of two choices. You tell us which one you would pick and why. And, feel free to both answer those questions as well. So the first one I'm going to ask you is New York City or Los Angeles?
Summer, fall, New York. Spring and winter, LA. Spring in New York is like Indian winter. It's still just freaking too cold for cycling.
Isn't summer in New York kind of heavy and humid and a bit gross?
It's not worse than LA. I mean, you want humidity or you want heat. I don't mind either one of them. I still prefer a hot summer day to a cold New York winter day. It's not even close.
New York is everything's on and popping in the summer. I wouldn't give up a New York summer, and then you can always just leave. There's plenty of places that are shaded. By the time we're riding, like we said, we adopted New Jersey and Fairmont. Oh, that's coming up. But we ride where there's shade. Is the moral of the story in the summer.
And do you guys ride outside in winter in New York, or is it too cold for that?
A lot of the serious cyclists do, for sure. Zwift has affected that. I've seen over the years, it's become less popular to ride outside, but you still get cabin fever after a while. So it is nice, especially you go to the park. If it's not too cold and you see your friends, it is a nice break from being inside, and it's beautiful there. In the winter, it's different, so it's novel. I like to ride outside.
Agreed. And you get to try out. You have your layers and your winter clothes. You don't get to wear the winter clothes if you stay in Zwift all the time.
Okay, best borough in New York City for riding bikes.
So what Aliya was alluding to is New York cyclists have kind of effectively annexed New Jersey and the New York towns of Piermont and Nyack, which are right over the GW Bridge. So cycling in New York, most people are accessible to the Hudson River bike path, and that takes us straight to the GW, and then we're in better roads for cycling. There's a river road that's beautiful and it gets hillier, so that's really the best. But otherwise, as we mentioned before, both Central and Prospect Park are really kind of special in New York City for cycling,
for providing a sense of community and places to race. So people will race at like 6 a.m, whatever, and then they'll go over the bridge. But we also have casino. Like this is road. We're specifically roadies, so we're sticking in that wheelhouse. But casino is far. Please, like, it's kind of far. Yes, it's far. We get that, but it does have it hosts an entire group of cycles. We're lucky to have a track, a velodrome where people can a banked velodrome where people can ride, and people do it as boasts a strong culture. We also have Randall's Island, kind of like been blowing up lately, where they do cross and stuff like that. And if we're going to include everybody and be really egalitarian, then we have the Bronx kids. Now, if we're really sticking to just the 5 boroughs, let's be real, the 4 boroughs. Staten Island, you just do the red. Do not count.
Oh, Pete Davidson just started crying.
He's going to have to cry.
He's the first one to say that.
I would go with, Manhattan's best for commuting. The Bronx is hills, though. If you actually want to work out and they have Van Cortlandt, which takes you, you don't have to cross any bridges. So really, I hate to admit it, but the Bronx. As a Brooklyn person, I hate to admit. I know he's making a face. Because
the park is still better. You're riding on roads though.
In the Bronx?
Yeah.
Yes, you're riding on the road like an adult. Like an adult. Yes, that is correct, with cars.
That's not ideal.
It's not. No, I mean there is no. Look, it's not a magical situation, but you can go. Van Cortlandt stretches all the way up to Cold Spring or something like that. You can just let the path starts there. Right.
I like that you said like an adult, because the 2 other hosts always chirp me for my reluctance to get out there on busy roads. They're a little bit more intrepid than I am, so I would definitely go for the park.
I mean, I ride through Times Square every day to get to the park. It's not like, it's something that we have to do. I'm not against it, but I wouldn't call it my dream scenario.
I started out as a shameful commuter, so I was used to ride. Like, I enjoyed getting that easy draft. I didn't have people to draft. I had cars. So, and it's traffic being what it is, they're sitting at 2025, so you just sit in and get where you need to get to in a fast fashion. And again, elevation is everything. Like, I cannot stand, like, Brooklyn's flat. We have the beach, and it's great, and it's beautiful, and, but it's flat. So if you want any kind of inclination, you're going uptown in Manhattan or you're going to the Bronx. The end.
All right, next rapid fire question. This is the eternal debate: white or black shoes?
White shoes.
Alex?
Yep.
Are we agreeing on this?
White. Next question.
Look, I'm team white shoes as well. Just checking if there's a different opinion there. Okay, so you're both New Yorkers. Mets or Yankees?
Rooting for the Yankees is like rooting for Google or Facebook. Yeah.
We don't root for Big Brother like that. I don't know. Like, we don't root for the evil empire. They're literally the evil empire.
Thank you. I'm a big Red Sox fan, and these two guys are Blue Jays fans.
Yeah, so AL East, the Yankees are
our enemies.
The only thing, we hate the Red Sox too as Blue Jays fans because it's, those two always keep us down in third or fourth or sometimes fifth place. But as the thing Alex, Warren, and I can agree on with the AL East is that the Yankees are really the problem. So if anyone out in Tampa Bay Tampa Bay doesn't have any fans, but Baltimore, they'll understand too. The Yankees are the problem with the AL East.
Last question. While you're here, this is your opportunity to throw something in the canal, or I think earlier on the podcast, as New Yorkers, you mentioned throw it in the East River. I think that's the New York version of throwing something in the canal. So is there anything you'd like to throw in the canal or in the East River?
Right. In New York, we have Canal Street, but you really wouldn't want to throw anything on Canal Street. So we dispose of all kinds of things in the East River, though.
Hint, hint. Knee warmers. I already said that. God. Burn them. Oh, sorry.
Calling cyclists bikers.
Yes, thank you. I hate that.
Yeah,
we're not out there on a motorcycle, and we're not Hell's Angels or anything like that. I agree. It's a weird thing to say.
Exactly. It speaks to a filthy casual when I hear somebody say, "Oh, you're a biker." Not waving back. Waving. You're too pro to wave? Who do you think you are? Are you dying? Are you suffering? Even if you're suffering, you can kind of give that suffer face of like, I know that you're in pain. I can see that I'm going down and you're coming up. So I know that you're suffering. But you just nod, and you're brothers and sisters in the suffering. And that's okay.
I actually think waving is very pro because there's a certain nonchalance to waving where it's like, oh, I'm just pushing 350 watts here, casual. Hey, how you doing? I think it's extremely pro to wave.
I agree.
That was actually a huge debate Warren and I had with our sort of the group we ride with here in Toronto, because obviously I'm sure you guys have seen it in New York as well. Since the pandemic, that we can see just with the numbers and sales, cycling has blossomed. It's boomed. There's been a lot of new riders. And so I felt I was noticing a lot less waving. And it wasn't clear to me whether it was due to new riders who didn't know the etiquette, just Toronto's full of assholes. So I agree. I'm a big proponent of waving. Like even if it's just kind of like a finger off the, like your heart, or it's a rough patch, it's just like a finger off of your bars to say like, I acknowledge you. We're both doing this silly sport together. You're going one way, I'm going the other.
Yeah,
absolutely
agree. Then I know we're definitely have another. I know I'm putting ankle socks. He doesn't want to put ankle socks. Ankle socks going now, bro. No, wait. Oh God, why? Are we athletes? Why?
They've been in the canal for some time. We've thrown them there.
We threw them in there, but now they're in the East River. Now they're international.
Yeah, they're world class now.
Still North American though.
And taking the rules seriously was the last one, but we already know that. That's just kind of like, that's kind of the point of this whole thing, right? Right.
Yeah,
exactly. We discussed the rules, but let's not take them too seriously. Well, Aliya and Alex, thank you very much for your time. It was really a pleasure to have you on Cycling Fashion Week. For all of our listeners, please go check out Ostroy on Instagram at OstroyNYC, or check out their collections, ostroy.com, and you can read Aliya Barnwell's columns at Velo News, and also follow her at her, I will say, very popular Instagram at Kit Addiction. And please make sure you check them out. They've been great guests. We're very grateful to have you guys on the podcast. Thank you very much. And we hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay, moving on to the next segment, Into the Canal, or given that we have a New York heavy episode, Into the East River, maybe? Nah, let's stick to the canal. The time when we throw products, things, ideas from the world of cycling and cycling fashion that we absolutely hate, and we throw them in Montreal's Lachine Canal. Let's start with Warren this week. What do you got, Warren?
What I'm going to throw in the canal this week is, I feel like been harping a lot on this, not just me, but all of us lately, and ripping on big gravel and how it's a front for big mountain bike. But I saw a video by Cycling Tips recently on their YouTube channel that was about foam tire inserts for gravel bike. And they said it was the best upgrade you could make to your gravel bike. Now, I want to first caveat that I like Cycling Tips a lot. I am a paying Velo Club member. Their news coverage is great. Their reviews are often super informative and detailed, but are actually
Their podcasts are only second to this one.
Yeah, exactly. Their like reviews are really good to read. It's not like reading a textbook on DC Rainmaker and all that, but you still get all the details you want. Anyway, they had a video up, and James Huang and Kaylee Fretz and another contributor were all agreeing that foam inserts were the best upgrade you can make to your gravel bike. And the reasoning was you can't fit mountain bike size tires on your gravel bike. So these kind of allow you to kind of take on more burly terrain with the foam inserts. They did acknowledge that these foam inserts are hard to get in, though apparently easier than the ones they make for mountain bikes. They also acknowledges they're really expensive. And if you do flat, they can be hard to change trail side or on the road. But they said it essentially like gives you more grip and makes your tires grippier, blah, blah, blah. Essentially, it just, the way they described it sounds like it made you be able to ride more mountain bike stuff. And again, it's the same point. Keep coming back to, just get a mountain bike.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, we've said this before. I think we've had other like gravel bikes on or news kits, and you're just like, okay, like there's a certain point where, you know, Alex and I, and more to an extent, but he likes the cargo bibs a little more than us. Like, gravel cycling is great, but it's an extension of your road cycling. It's just sort of like taking like a little bit bigger tires, maybe a little bit of sort of tread on there, off to like a little bit of sort of rough terrain. If you're saying like, oh, I can't get gnarly enough terrain, do they use the word gnarly? Then if you can't, then it's not a gravel ride. It's a mountain bike ride, and buy a mountain bike. Just admit that you want to be a mountain biker, get some baggies and buy a mountain bike.
I hate gravel events that have single track in them. I look at the parcours ahead of signing up for the event, and if it's got any single track, could be 10 meters of single track, I'm out.
The funny part was in the video, they clarified that they really like the foam inserts apparently really excel in like really rocky gravel, which again,
great,
sounds like
mountain bike,
bike territory. So yeah, I feel like I've listed off all the many reasons. It's just yet another product that big mountain bike is trying to convince you need for your gravel bike.
Just shoving mountain bikes down our throats.
Yeah. But calling it gravel.
Mountain bike by any other name. Okay, Tony, what do you got in the canal this week?
I am actually doing a reverse canal. I'm giving a recommendation.
Pull something from the canal?
No, I guess it's not a reverse canal in that sense, but like I'm giving a recommendation. I'm giving out something positive to the world.
So I think we could call this a Camillien maybe, because the canal is when it's not good.
The shitty part of Montreal riding, and the
Camillien is when it's really good. For our international listeners, Camillien Oud is the climb in Montreal. If you watch the Grand Prix Cycliste de Montréal, I think they climb it like 19 times. It's the hardest col in the world. It is the steepest, longest climb in the world. The Stelvio is nothing compared to that. So just check it out on Strava. Camillien Oud is the best col in the world.
All right, so I'm gonna do the first Camillien, and I'm gonna recommend a book called The Rider by Dutch author Tim Krabbe. I read this right when I got into cycling about 15 years ago. It's a short little book about sort of the inner workings of being in a cycling race. It's quick. It's written really well. It's something that sort of like gives a lot of motivation and inspires cycling. It was written sometime in the late 70s. I haven't read it for 15 years, so there's a bit of memory fog in terms of all the aspects, but I remember really liking it. And really, as a new cyclist, it was really important to kind of helping me understand bikes and bike racing and the mentality of suffering and a lot of the stuff that kind of comes with falling in love with cycling. So in the podcast First Camillien, I am going to recommend The Rider by Tim Krabbé. I think everyone should go grab it.
I read it for the first time a year or two ago, and I would agree with Tony. It's a really good book, quick read, and it will only just make you want to ride your bike more.
Okay, so I'm going to do my canal. Okay, so we're all excited. So the World Tour is coming back soon. So we're recording this podcast in late February. With late February comes the return of pro cycling. There is the Omloop Het Nieuwsblad on February 26th and the iconic Strade Bianche in Tuscany, which arguably some people could say it's a gravel ride. Not really. It's a road ride that goes on some gravel sectors. That's on March 5th. And then you've got all your regular classics that show up after that. Milano Sanremo at the end of March, and then all the Flanders classics after. I'm going to throw in the canal any race that takes place before Omloop Het Nieuwsblad on February 26th and any race that takes place after the Giro di Lombardia on October 8th, the Tour of Lombardy. And these races that I'm going to throw in the canal are the UAE Tour and the Tour of Guangxi in China. UAE Tour, I have absolutely no interest in watching pro cycling on an 8-lane UAE highway in the desert with ridiculous crosswinds and sand flying all over the place. I don't even know why. Well, it's clear why they're doing that. I guess there's a market there that pro cycling is trying to attack, and it makes a lot of sense from a commercial standpoint. But from a pure sports standpoint, this is no interest in watching that. I think that these races should be thrown in the canal. Same thing for the Tour of Guangxi in China in October. I think it's from October 13 to October 18. China is obviously a big market. Pro cycling wants to get into it. I have no interest in that stuff. These races are absolutely in the canal.
I'm going to disagree with you, Alex, specifically about the UAE Tour. Morality aside, I think it's actually like a fun race, and it kind of gets me back into like the excitement of watching bike racing. Like there's a lot of sprint finishes usually, and sprinters are showing up in early season form. Cavendish just won, I think it was stage 2, with a like really impressive win actually, which is like creating potentially maybe a bit of drama around the tour. Like, is it going to be Jacobsen or is it going to be Cavendish that Quick Step takes?
And I can assure you that no decisions in terms of who will be the lead sprinter in Quick Step are made at the UAE Tour. It is like watching preseason baseball. It's like watching your stupid Toronto Blue Jays play in Florida in the month of March. There is no interest in watching that.
I disagree. It's building narratives and storylines that the media can talk about for the next 5 months. Today we're recording it on, I believe today was stage 4, and there was a mountaintop finish that Pogacar won, of course. Yeah, I don't know. The UAE Tour, I think I started watching it last year and got kind of into it, and so yeah, I disagree.
Yeah, Warren, you're incredibly wrong. This is ridiculous. Because not only is it not interesting as a race, I need my cycling weather trajectory to stay the same with my personal weather trajectory. So like, I don't need to watch a sunny, hot UAE knowing that the first time I step out on the road, post trainer sort of early spring will be wet and shitty. So I need like Belgian rides, right? Like I need to sort of like, I need my racing to sort of like follow what my real life weather cycling will be, right? Like Tour's perfect because Toronto in July is hot and sticky and uncomfortable. And so it's like perfect to watch the Tour. So it's like, I can't start with a UAE. I can't watch the UAE Tour to get excited.
Same goes for the Tour Down Under in Australia, which I think is like in January or something like that, which is almost more like a promotional criterium that riders do. Like no one really takes that seriously, but it's the same thing. You're in 6 feet of snow. It's -20 and you're watching summer in Australia. It just doesn't sound right.
It's like a winter vacation for my brain.
No, I don't need that.
Okay, that's it for this week's episode of Cycling Fashion Week. Thank you very much to Aliya Barnwell, the kit critic for Velo News. Follow her on Instagram at Kit Addiction. And thank you very much to Alex Ostroy, the founder and owner of kit brand Ostroy. Follow them on Instagram at OstroyNYC or go to their website, ostroy.com. Cycling Fashion Week was brought to you by our good friends at Le Club, which is the host to the world's most exciting cycling brands. Go to leclub.cc. They are your go-to destination for the season's premium cycling apparel. They are relaunching their website this spring. They have more brands and categories arriving very soon, but for now you can find brands like MAAP, The Service Course, Alba Optics, and fingers crossed, socks. Demand more from your cycling experience. Go to leclub.cc. Thank you, Warren. Thank you, Tony. Please follow us on Instagram at Cycling Fashion Week. You can find the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please leave a review, hopefully a 5-star review, and you can leave a little comment, little funny comment that we have actually a lot of fun reading. Thank you very much to all of our listeners, and we will see you in a couple weeks for another episode of Cycling Fashion Week. Take care.